Linux Out Loud is firing up our mics, connecting those headphones as we prepare to get rowdy. I'm Wendy, and I'm joined by my fellow co-hosts, Nate and Bill this time. We are three friends sitting around a virtual table talking Linux, open source, tech, gaming, and everything in between. We keep the banter friendly, the conversation kind of on topic, and we definitely have fun doing it. This week, we're spouting off about backups and archiving. Let's get into episode 103.
Anyway.
All the good music. There you go. Or I guess not necessarily good music, but not half bad intro. What are you two been up to? It's been a little while since we've seen you, Bill.
I am recovering a bit from the flu. It kind of comes with the time of year that we're in and being in crowded, confined spaces with lots of people trying to install equipment and configure advanced networking and home assistant infrastructure for a client of ours. And both my lead tech and I got it at the same time, and both were out for the count at the same time. So I'm mostly there, but Thanksgiving break was nice and quiet. Neil did come up and hang out with me for the day, which is always lovely. And we spent the day talking about Linux and open source, of course.
Sweet. What else is there to talk about? You're on the mend. Yeah.
There is nothing else to talk about.
Though, I mean, we tend to do that ourselves, to get off topic or not necessarily Linux and open source related. But Nate, I'm hoping you have an awesome note-taking app because I could use one.
So I there's been several different note-taking applications I've used over the years. The one that I've been using the longest is something called TiddlyWiki. Again, article on cubically.com. Not important, but I'm playing with some others for different reasons. One, I use OneNote. Historically, I've been using OneNote at work. And OneNote it's Microsoft OneNote, very unreliable. So everything from whether it's the client or the web client, it doesn't matter. It's not synchronizing, don't know why, because it's all backed on OneDrive, right? And then, but like things like I'll have to click on a picture to see it. It's just the user experience is degraded rapidly. And I don't know if it's because I've been putting a lot of notes in there. That doesn't seem like that should be the reason why, because you're only opening up a window to a certain area, and just really strange behavior. And no, it's not because I'm running it on Linux. That's not why. I know that's what you're going to say, Bill. You and your anti-Linux ways. I'm kidding. That was the friendly banter, almost on topic. Anyway,
it's because you're using OpenSUSE. Let's just put that out there.
Well, it could be that.
We got to fill in for Matt.
Except it was happening on my Windows machine, Windows 11.
Okay.
So,
what did I hear you say? Windows XP?
11.
Yeah, XP. Okay, thought so.
What's the difference?
Isn't that like the Roman numeral thingy that represents 11 and like deconstructed?
Oh.
Archaic Romulan language kind of thing.
That's kind of an idea. That's a good idea. I like that. You put XI, Windows XI, so it's kind of like XP, but not.
You just have to kind of like have a smudge in your glasses or like a hair where, it looks right.
Yeah, I'm not wearing glasses. I got the old LASIK, so I don't have to wear contacts or glasses. So it works out well. Anyway, that's off topic. Trying to stay on topic almost. So anyway, on Linux Saloon, I was talking to Colin or PCTLC, something like that. He recommended Joplin. And so I've been playing with Joplin for things at work, and I can use OneDrive as the synchronization piece of it. And that works beautifully. Like everything about it. So you have your Markdown. You can use either Markdown or you can use the what you see is what you get, the WYSIWYG, or I don't know what it's called. But anyway, so I like Markdown. So it's very easy to use that, take pictures. I can throw them in there, whether it's on the Linux machine or the Windows machine. It's been very reliable. I really like it. No problems there. And but I don't want to put my personal notes on my work notebook, if that makes any sense. So I was looking at another notebook option as well, just to play around with them. Now, TiddlyWiki's been great, but the problem with TiddlyWiki is like copying and pasting pictures in there is a little bit problematic, and then it's a little bit clunky. And also the the markdown language it uses is not like anything else. It's like its own markdown. And I kind of don't like that as much. So like, Hedgedoc that we use uses a specific language of markdown. That's the same as what Joplin uses. It's the same thing as what the next application I use, Obsidian, I'm using. Now, Obsidian is kind of, well, it's in early stages right now. I only started playing with it as of this past Saturday at Linux Saloon. But there's a plugin that's supposed to be able to publish directly to WordPress from Obsidian. Have not gotten that to work right. I couldn't get the REST API, which maybe it was resting too long. I don't know, but I couldn't get that to work properly. But either way, I can copy and paste it because it uses the same kind of block identification on that. So I can very easily just copy and paste if I'm working on something locally right up to WordPress. So if I'm publishing a cubiclenate.com article, I can do it very easily. So I've been playing with that. And what I kind of like about Obsidian, which is it's almost like a hybrid between the markdown and the what you see is what you get. So I type in the markdown, and then as I leave that line, it automatically turns back into what you see is what you get. So it's kind of a hybrid of those two. Very interesting. It's pretty neat. Visually, it works great for me. And then also I can do the markdown and I don't have to worry about, having it look right. Because we have I always keep these things in 2 panes on when we do the show here. And I do the same thing with Linux Out Loud. So with Obsidian, the way it would present the information, you would write it markdown, but it would automatically present itself like what you see is what you get. Really cool. I know I've said that 3 times now, but I just had to say it a 3rd time because 3 times is a charm. And this way you remember it, right? I have to say it 7 times to remember it. Anyway, doesn't matter. So I've been playing with that. And then the other neat thing is the way it stores the files. And this is what I think is really neat. It stores them as just markdown files. So let's say you want to look at it with some other application, you can. In fact, using, I think, Ghostwriter, I think it's called. Ghost something. What is it called? I'm going to stammer here. Ghostwriter. I opened up the raw file to Ghostwriter, and then I edited it and I saved it. But I had Joplin up as I'm doing it, that same file. And as soon as I hit save, Joplin updated it. So I'm like, whoa, this is a game changer for me because I've had trouble with TiddlyWiki, and if things not automatically updating, so I've lost data quite a few times with it. So the way this actively checks for file changes, very cool. It is also a little standalone application. I like it a lot. Now, nothing against TiddlyWiki. I think it's still a great product. I like how you can do JavaScript and other things right inside TiddlyWiki. So it's very, very extensible as far as adding additional features or having it do organization and whatnot. But I don't really need that so much as I want something that's just a simple, reliable note taker that I can keep locally or share. And also because I can use SyncThing as the back end for it for me personally instead of an Obsidian account, which then I can't share notes that way, which is fine because I don't want to do that. I just want to be able to do it locally. So right now, also the visuals of it, the dark theme of it is very nice. It's what I like. And so right now, as it sits today, in my early stages of testing, I'm really liking Obsidian. Now there's another guy who he's part of my Linux Saloon. He used to be more so now than he is now, Michael Vash, who he told me I should check out Obsidian, and I checked it out when he first recommended it years ago, and I didn't like it at that time. And maybe I just wasn't the right timing. Sometimes just something's got to hit you at the right time. You got to be at the right place, whatever. And this has absolutely hit me at the right time and everything else. So I'm going to be playing around with this, still early days for my personal stuff, Cubicle articles, local notes. I'm going to see how it works out. I like a lot of the other little features like this graph view. You can visually see how your tags all work together. That's pretty cool.
Nice.
But I'm definitely going to keep using Joplin for my OneNote replacement. So I'm looking at Obsidian right now as my TiddlyWiki replacement, potentially. I don't know yet. Or maybe in addition to, not really sure. And then using Joplin for my OneNote replacement, which is doing smashingly well. And I've really enjoyed that whole chestnut. So that's where I'm at. Some great applications. Obsidian is an app image, and I'm using Joplin as a Flatpak. Flatpaks have some theme integration issues still. So there's a little annoying bit with the menu bar is white at the top. Don't like it, but I can deal with it. So maybe I'll look for an app image for for Joplin, just so I don't have to deal with that visual thing. Yeah, I know people are like, oh, but app image is not as good. I'm like, you know what? I don't care.
It's a tool that gets the job done. That's how I look at any of those formats, whether it's Flatpak, Snap, or app image. It's a means to an end.
Right. Exactly. Anyway, that's what I'm playing with. There'll probably be an article on this at some point in time. I definitely feel like Joplin is the perfect OneNote replacement, but I think Obsidian could do it as well. But more on that in the future. And I really like them. And so I think, thanks to the Linux Saloon community, this is why I've been playing around with some alternatives to make my life a little bit easier. And also, those are Windows applications too. So if you have to live between multiple worlds, Windows and Linux, maybe Macintosh, no idea. I didn't check. Is it still called Macintosh or is it called Mac now? Apple.
It's called Mac OS. They even have one. So Joplin even has one for Apple Silicon, which is pretty cool. So that one, without a doubt, is multi-platform, even Android or iOS. I've never played with Joplin. I have had a little bit of time with Obsidian, but that's also been quite a while ago. So maybe it's worth checking out again. Though I have to be honest, I'm a horrible
because you're
speller.
never because you're not honest normally.
Never honest. Yeah, no, never. I'm an absolutely horrible speller, and so I have to have something that has spell check on it.
Okay, so Obsidian has spell check. Joplin, I don't think it does. Joplin says it does, but it doesn't. Maybe that's a flat seal issue. Maybe I should check the app image. I don't know. So, but right now I would say it's Obsidian spell check works, no problem. I didn't have to fiddle around with it to make it work. I have noticed that different Flatpak applications, spell check is hit and miss. Not sure if that's a sandboxing issue or something else. I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
So when I've run Obsidian, I've generally run it in a container on one of my Raspberry Pis or another device, and I just do everything over the web interface. That way I don't have to worry about the theme issues that come with Flatpaks or other oddball things. If I have to write something where I'm offline, which is pretty rare these days, I might actually go as far as just jotting that idea down quickly in a text file, basically, with my favorite text editor. And then when I have service, I'll go ahead and load that into the browser. But between LTE hotspots and Wi-Fi and network connectivity and Tailscale, there's very, very few times where I run out of internet now.
Because I'm a digital nomad very often, so I'm on a plane more often than I like, and I'm not going to pay for the plane Wi-Fi. That's never going to happen. I like to have the offline. It's kind of a, if I don't have it, it's really, I don't know how do I put this. I don't like it. So that's kind of where that's at. But
yeah, that makes sense.
But as far as like the using SyncThing as my backend for Obsidian gives me that almost quasi cloud, not really sort of interaction between my different devices. And so far, so good. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it looks like Obsidian is iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, and Linux. The Mac one says universal, so I'm guessing that means it works on multiple versions and with their own chip. I don't have one to try it, but if you do, there it is.
It's probably some kind of like an Electron app, probably, so it wouldn't matter if it's a Apple or Intel Silicon.
The funny thing is they've got an app image. Actually, it looks like two versions of the app image. One also for ARM, a Snap, a Deb, and a Flatpak. So there's lots of different ways to pick up these apps. Yep. Plus the web version, right?
Right. I'm trying to get away from web versions, actually.
So it kind of depends. Web version can be awesome and not awesome at the same time. I've been very, very thankful for the hotspot data on my phone this last couple weeks because I've been, say, editing shows while also at Robotics, and the internet we have at Robotics is not very good. There's no way I could get files uploaded and all of that stuff based on it. So, I mean, for the most part, I do have mobile data typically, But then we're running into situations where, like my husband, when he's headed for Nevada, there's whole strings in Nevada that have no service. So if he was using something like this, that could become potentially an issue if he was needing to access, not that he would need to access them in the middle of the desert while driving, but say that was a possibility. That's where the offline status is nice. I know I've had Photopea bite me in the butt sometimes, where I'm like, okay, I've got to get this thing made, or I've got to get it turned into a WebMP image. And yeah, that's when things break down as it's late and all I want to do is go to sleep. So it can be positive and negative both ways. I haven't necessarily had that big of an issue with it since we switched to Starlink as our home internet, but I know before sometimes that was a bit of a trial, a bit of an issue. So positives and negatives to both.
Yep, for sure. And the mobile Starlink thing, that looks kind of like it could be maybe pretty cool. I don't know.
Mobile is in like the direct to cell, or mobile is in you travel with the dish?
Wasn't like the little a portable little like on the go Starlink.
They have a new kit now where it's designed for RVers and boaters and other digital nomads.
And I think robotics mentors as well.
Now you just need to design the drone to pick up the Starlink mobile dish and deposit it on top of the building wherever you're at, and then another one to run the cable down to wherever you need the internet access.
Right now, I'm definitely not interested in like getting the mobile package, but I am super excited about the direct to cell capabilities that are coming out. I'm already with T-Mobile, so I'm super excited for that connectivity to happen. Not to have connectivity at the cabin, though we do have a satellite device, so we can get SOSs out. I still would like us to like turn off our phones or turn off connectivity or something so we can still decompress. But it will be saving us a bill because then we won't need that device when Magneto is traveling back and forth between Idaho and Nevada in places he doesn't have service, because right now it's his backup. If he breaks down in a dead zone, how do you get a message out saying, hey, I need help, I need a tire, I need, whatever. That's why we currently have that device. So that's going to help. I'm definitely excited about that feature.
So speaking of excited about features, Bill, you're creating a DIY NAS or NAS or NASty.
Yes, I am. I'm investigating solutions as alternatives to the current Synology setup that I have. Okay. Not that I've been unhappy with Synology. It's been a very good device for me. It's just the open source enthusiast in me wants to look for other alternatives, such as TrueNAS Scale, Unraid. There's a couple of other ones out there like Rockstore that just look interesting. And all I care about is what feature sets are missing out of a DIY setup. How much money do I actually save? Is there more reliability? Is there better support out there? Now, I'll preface this by saying that Synology and QNAP and many others, TerraStore, Netgear, all have commercial support packages that are readily available. You can run Docker on most of the appliances. A lot of them have their own built-in apps, so on and so forth. I happen to like the idea of buying that form factor case online, throwing some drives in it, a board, and then maybe putting in a beefier processor like a Xeon or an i7, and then running virtual machines on it, much like I do on my hypervisors right now. So I'm kind of in the exploratory phase of this project, reading what other people have done, what's worked for them, what's haven't. And there will probably be more to come on that later on.
I'm interested in knowing if you have any recommendations on a NAS platform that would be DIY, that would be Synology parity for, let's say, maybe like hosting backups for VM snapshots or maybe like Office 365. I'm asking for a friend.
When it comes to the Office 365 backups, from my own experience, Synology is second to none because they have a native integration into Microsoft Office 365. It's designed for it. We use it as a supplemental backup at work. So we have another primary solution that we like for various reasons, including easy recovery. But as we talk about backups more in this episode, we'll discuss how one backup isn't really sufficient. You want to have multiple backup sets. And for those users that like to have full control and ownership of their data, what better way to have a copy of your data off the cloud and on a device that you own? That's sort of rare nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been able to mimic or recreate that easily on a DIY platform. And for me, the time and effort reward doesn't line up versus the cost of getting a Synology 2-bay NAS, popping a couple of drives into it, setting up the DSM operating system that it has, and then click the button that says Active Backup for Business for Microsoft Office. Very straightforward, very simple. I would tell you just stick with that because you can get support for it if you need it.
That makes sense. I'm just kind of curious as to what, maybe what options are out there.
This is what I do for a living. So feel free to ping me offline. I'll be happy to give you answers.
I'm really excited for the full rundown of the different things that you are trying and how they relate to Synology. I think overall, even though they're not an open source company, they're really solid in their hardware and their software. So it would be nice if there was something that was competitive to them in some of those spaces. But I guess if you're already using a proprietary service like Microsoft and you have to use that, using another proprietary service that has built-in capability to back it up does make sense. Whereas in, some of your homegrown solutions, maybe that's where these other options would fit in better.
And again, multiple types of backups. So I'm not going to just pitch my Synology out in the snow. I'm still going to use it as my primary backup solution. I'm just going to build something else and run that as my supplemental backup. Actually check and see if I can restore files from it and if that file integrity is in place.
Yeah.
Whether it's snapshots or some other sort of version-based backup. But I would like to have multiple options available to me.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
I think it's also fun just to play with these things just to see, I've got a piece of hardware that is out of frame over there that is retired. It's a retired Dell NAS thing. And I want to try out Easy NAS, True NAS, maybe a few others, just to see how the interfaces are, just for fun, just for funsies.
If it is a Dell SAN, you might have a couple of problems in doing that. Just
it's specifically a NAS.
The hardware. Oh, then you might be okay. But if I were to look at,
even if I'm not, it's okay because I'm just playing.
Exactly. You're just playing, you're just discovering. But two of the products that I would say are in the open source realm that I've grown to like are both Unraid and TrueNAS Scale. And the jury's out between the techs at the office of which one they like more. Some run Unraid, some run TrueNAS Scale. They both have their good and bad. And one of the first tests I'm going to do on the rig that I choose to build is install one of each and see which one I like better.
Nice.
Yeah. I look at that as one of the beauties of living in an open source world is just so many things just to play with. Like even if you don't do anything with it, just the journey is worth so much. You can go ahead and buy a destination. Nothing at Synology. I think Synology is a solid product. But sometimes going through the maze and walking down the barren lands of AI, I have no idea what I'm doing, is really a good time. So
I've done the same thing with doorbells, but that's for another day.
Walking into doorbells?
Trying the feeble attempt at trying to create my own smart doorbell and actually have it work. But again, that's a topic for another day.
Ooh, I have an idea, but let's wait another day to talk about that. And actually, I have in my mind right now, I'm thinking about it and what you could use for that. Let me see if I can find it.
Wendy, I apologize in advance, but I understand that you are having some fun with toys in your world of robotics, and that has led you to some interesting travel. I'd like to know more about that, if I may.
Yes. It's been pretty gosh dang crazy around here. So this will be my third weekend in a row, non-holiday. that is a robotics function. So there was a scrimmage that the team hosted. Then we went to Montana. Then we had the holiday week/weekend, which we had traveled for as well. And then this coming weekend, my two kids, my middle two that are on the FTC team, are headed for Utah. And I will be staying here locally so the little team can do their scrimmage. Lots and lots of robotics and stuff going around. So I know I talked about after Thanksgiving going ahead and throwing Fedora on here, getting that all set up, figuring out, what I needed line by line in order to get that installed. And well, that hasn't happened yet. And I don't actually see that happening in the near future. Because I can't seem to stay on top of anything on the to-do list. So for those of you who are wondering how that's going, it's not. And when I finally get a lull, I'll let you know.
I appreciate that. Just that presentation right there.
Well, I mean, it is how it is. I could either be extremely stressed out and an absolute mess, or I can laugh about it. And well, I'm going with the latter at this point.
Yeah, you kind of have to, I think, just laugh at it. I think there was, I think, was it a line in one of the Shakespeare? Golly, I can't remember now, but basically, you can look at things as either a tragedy or a comedy. Depends on if you think or feel about it or something like that. And so
that might be a Shakespeare line. I would consider that something very possible from Shakespeare.
I'd have to look it up, but yeah. I know I read it, and after hearing somebody say it to me, and I laughed really hard because it's really true. It's like, you can have the whole everything just come absolutely unraveling apart, and you'd be like, well, what can you do?
Yeah,
laugh at it.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, if you're dead or dismembered, that might be a separate thing. But, for the little thing.
If you're dead, do you know you're laughing? I think that's the more metaphysical question to ask here.
No.
That's good. That's a good point. I don't even know how to respond to that. I mean, if I'm dead, I'm laughing because I don't have to deal with it,
It's done. It's all over. You don't have to deal with anybody's crap anymore. It's finished. Yeah. I guess there you go. That's a good reason to laugh.
Yeah.
I thought you were laughing because Matt wasn't here.
This is true also.
Ha 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 ha.
Matt's not here, but I think he's here in spirit because, you've already flipped crap to Nate about running OpenSUSE, so it's okay, Matt. Even though we know you can't be here, you're currently getting ready to travel. That spot's being filled. Don't worry about it.
Well, yeah, Matt is always here in spirit, good, bad, or otherwise.
Yes, absolutely. Now, last time you were on, Bill, we had some listener feedback that says, I love hearing about the backups and different ways to do them. Minimum of 3, right? Or it's not actually backed up. But there was a question from Sean, who is very, very active in the Linux Out Loud community. And he wants to know backups and archives. What's up with both of them? How do you handle both of them? Pros and cons, what's going on? And it looks like, especially after hearing your vigorous typing earlier, that you've got some information for us on this topic.
I do. So whenever I talk about backups with either a customer or a friend or a family member, I always ask the same questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how. Some of these are obvious. Why should you back up? Well, as you just stated, because if your data is not in 3 places, frankly, it doesn't exist.
Now, when you say 3 places, just so for clarity purposes, you mean 3 separate places, or 3? Can they be co-located?
We'll say 3 mechanisms. So a simple example of this would be, for instance, this little guy right here, which is an external SSD. you could simply have 3 of these. And what I tend to do when I'm doing a rotation of these is one is plugged into the device I want to back up, one is sitting next to the device I want to back up, and one is offsite out of the building that the other 2 are in. The nice way of doing that rotation is if you've ever played Uno and you get the reverse card, you change directions. So in the case of one of my customers, if somebody forgets to go and get the offsite drive, they can at least switch the on-site devices until that person can go and retrieve the offsite drive. In that case, the rotation just kind of reverses. Some of the drawbacks of that are your backup set is only as good as the last time you changed the drive out. So if you are you walk into a situation where, and I've had this happen to me a number of times, I'll ask the customer, so when was the last time somebody changed this that's sitting on top of your server? We were supposed to change that? How? No one ever explained that to us.
Uh-oh.
So then I give them the spiel about why you need to change your backups, or I'll log into the drive that's been sitting next to the server and find out that it's 5 years old or frankly has never been used. So that's one simple way. And again, you have your device that you're using actively, whether it's your desktop, a server, your laptop. You have a few of these. I tend to keep my offsite in a safe deposit box at the bank. Now, Sean, you asked a really good question, which was talk about backups and archiving. These are not the same terms, and I want to make that clear. Backup and archives, at least in my world, are not the same. An archive is a snapshot of your data at a certain point of time that stays permanent. So, for instance, at my manufacturing clients, once a year, we take a full backup as an archive to an external drive, and that goes to their offsite facility, safe deposit box, whatever have you, and it is never touched again. So that particular storage mechanism is given a label, we'll call it 2024 archive, and it's set to read only. So no data could ever be overwritten on that. We can always go back to that disk in 2024 if we have to.
Okay, so pause you right there for just a second. So how, in those situations where they're archiving, it's now locked, do you keep it from having bit rot?
There really isn't a practical way, we'll say, of dealing with bit rot. I don't have one other than using very specialized optical media that is guaranteed to outlast the human race. But I do have some customers that have a 40 years in 40 data retention requirement. So one of the ways you could counter bit rot is hypothetically, you could every 5 years, you could rotate that drive. You take it out of read-only mode, you copy that drive, and you say 2024's archive was actually done in 2029, or it was copied in 2029. So you could kind of stay ahead of that. You have to have the budget for that. If your data is that important to you, especially for all you home labbers and self-hosters out there, you've already assumed that as part of your operating cost. You know that you are responsible for your backups. You don't want anything in the cloud, and you're already managing that. So to me, it's very important to have a rolling set of backups, going back to these, as well as that snapshot in time, whether it's, an SD card, if you really want to be pedantic about it, or if you are somebody who hates themselves, you could do it all to floppy and just sit there and change out floppies all day, all night. I don't think those will fit.
No.
We'll go with 7 7/8.
I mean, 8-inch.
Sure.
With rounding error.
Yes, with rounding error by filing it around. So I did want to make that point about the difference between backups and archives, because I know sometimes those two terms get commingled a little bit too much. The next thing you want to think about is who should have access to your backups in the event of an emergency. So if I decide to walk across my street tomorrow and I get hit by a cement truck, how would my wife be able to access those backups and that data, because there is some critical family stuff on there. So when you're making your backups, have a plan of a trusted person who at least knows how to get to that data with a set of instructions on how to restore that data. I have instructions in my Bitwarden vault that make that very clear. So it says if I am incapacitated or otherwise deceased, here's step 1 to get into that archive, and then everything else will be made clear then. When should you take backups? Well, that's up to you. Take backups as often as you like. I happen to take mine nightly, and I have a rotation. I keep the last 14 backups of my critical systems. And I back that up mainly to my NAS. So again, I have a Synology NAS. I use the built-in active backup for business software to back up this machine here. And that keeps that data local. I have another command that then takes that backup, sends that to an external drive, and that external drive is actually what I rotate. So we'll call it a backup of the backup, but I'm simply just synchronizing that data from one to the other so that I have it safe in an offsite location. That has actually saved me before. The NAS that I have is basically the second iteration of that model. The first one died. I lost the ability to access that data for a short period of time. Now I needed to recover the Synology configuration file and that data, which was very easy to do. Synology made that easy. And I just simply restored all of that to a new box, and up I went a couple hours later. But again, you can back up however you like. Some people back up to Amazon S3. Some people back up to Google Drive. Some people back up to OneDrive. Some people have a virtual private server out in DigitalOcean or Linode, and they just have their storage there. And all of those are acceptable as long as your data is in 3 places. Now, why should you do backups? Well, it's very simple. Don't be an idiot with your data. And I'm going to leave that at that.
I think we should explore the idiot part.
Well, Matt's not here, so I can't do that.
Okay, good point. I know that he's been making a point to back up his game data, like his digital archives of his like GOG, games and whatever. So that's
a great idea.
So one of those situations where if it's not in 3 places, you don't have it at all. My co-mentor, her son graduated this last spring, and they went on a trip. And during that trip, she realized that her phone memory was full. So she thought everything was backed up to Google Photos, deleted over 4 years worth of pictures, and it also deleted them from Google Photos. So now, like, her son's high school robotics and all of that stuff is completely gone, just because she didn't make sure that it was backed up somewhere else before, just thinking that, oh, it's on this service, it's fine, I've got it, and it wasn't.
It's an important thing to note.
That hurts really, really bad to hear.
Deeply, right?
It does. That stings.
Like it, even though I don't even know this person, and it gives me like the white hot like shot like that goes down your spine. You're talking about, like it's like you've just erased history you cannot get back, and right. that's rough.
Gone forever.
Common false assumption that is made is that data stored in the cloud is automatically backed up, and that is just simply not true. If you are using the cloud for storage, whether it's Google Photos, Apple iCloud, Microsoft OneDrive, you have to make an assumption that that data is not backed up because you do not control that data.
Yeah.
There are lots of third-party applications, SyncThing. Synology has some nice ones for mobile that will, in addition to your Google Photos, sync directly to a NAS, and in some cases even back up the data that you have in Google Photos. So I know someone who uses Dropbox, and their iCloud is tied to Dropbox. I back up that person's Dropbox to my NAS so that if they decide to ever remove their Dropbox account for some reason, at least that data is still stored somewhere else. Unfortunately, Wendy, the story of your colleague there is one that just resonates with me all too often, and sadly I'm a little desensitized to it, just because it's the world that I live in.
So it's something that you see on a regular basis with some of your clients and the like. Is I thought this was backed up, I thought I had a copy, and now it's gone.
Yes. So a classic situation of that is where you initially lay out your backup set.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this happens more in business than home, but we'll lay out a backup set and then the IT director will create a new share on that server. Well, we weren't notified that that share was created, so how did we know to back it up? So it's important that one of the best safeguards against backup problems is communication and documentation. So communicating with your colleagues of what data needs to be backed up regularly. Are you testing and restoring those backups on a systematic basis? So we have a rule in our company. No matter what backup platform we are using, we still manually audit and test restore files, because a backup service could tell you, yeah, everything's working, but that's because it last backed up 2 weeks ago and stopped working since, and the service crashed. Remember, we're working on computers. They are not infallible. So it's still important. And I still do this, once a quarter. I log into I grab the external drive, plug it in, go into Hyper Backup, click restore, look for certain files, restore those files. If they restore, I'm happy. I don't need to restore the whole data set, but there are certain critical files and folders that I want to make sure are working. So if you are doing your own backups, please make sure that you're testing restores on a somewhat regular basis. Because what you don't want to have happen is, the white hot lightning moment down the back when you, pardon me, when you click restore and there's nothing there. Or it says the data set's corrupt and I can't restore this. Now, there are lots of good backup softwares out there and methods to do these kinds of backups. And two that come to my mind right off the top, nice GUI applications, easy to use, are Deja-Dup and Timeshift. Both work with all sorts of different Linux file systems, whether you're using XFS, ext4, BTRFS. Both are pretty versatile. Now, I'm going to put a pin in that and say that BTRFS and ZFS snapshots are not backups by themselves. Do not assume that snapshots are backups. You can take a snapshot, you can send that somewhere else. That might work as a backup, but I've never been comfortable relying strictly on snapshots as backups, whether they're virtual machines, containers, whatever have you. I was just raised in a world where you don't do that. If you are command line savvy, chances are you're already working with a product like rsync, rclone, or Restic. Restic is neat because you can create S3 buckets. For those of you out there, S3 buckets are basically an implementation of cloud-based storage. You can kind of create your own private cloud-based storage, oftentimes called object storage, and you can send data to that. You can also send it over NFS or Samba or whatever means you want. And I know a lot of the advanced Linux users that I hang around with, they like those because they can create changes to their backup scripts and send them to their Git repos and have a little bit more granular control over that. I will tell you how I do mine now. Having gone through all that, I'm going to tell you how I do mine. I'm going to give you my playbook for it. I simply use Synology Active Backup for Business on my workstations. I save that data to my NAS. I then write that data via the NAS to Hyper Backup and then do my rotation offsite that way. Why did I pick that? Simple. It was the easiest of all of them. Because what I don't want to do when I'm at home is enterprise IT.
Right. That makes sense.
You have to think about convenience, functionality, security, and find where you are in that triangle. And that applies to security. It also applies to backups. I'm very much integration, set and forget. We'll call it the Apple way if you want to. But when I do my own backup audit, I log into my NAS. I go into the Hyper Backup Vault. I select with a little slider the date that I want to check the backup from. I explore the set. I restore a file or two, and I make sure that it works, and then I'm happy with that. Now, Nate, you talked about Obsidian, which is a fantastic note-taking app. You can, I think, even set up recurring task lists and checklists in there. Or at least set yourself a reminder to run your own manual backup audit. You could create that little audit list in your Obsidian application with the little checkboxes, kind of like how OneNote or Joplin have it. And that's a great way for anybody to know what they're backing up, how it's being backed up, when it's being backed up, how critical is that data that's being backed up, so the why, and who is the point of contact in an emergency for those backups. So again, I chose to keep it simple. Full disclosure, I work for a Synology reseller and partner, so I have access to a lot of that hardware. But for the sake of open source, I want to see if I can recreate that with the TrueNAS scale or the Unraid product or something like that. SyncThing is another great tool, and I want to talk about that because SyncThing in itself is not a backup. SyncThing is half of a backup. If you're going to synchronize something, and let's say you inadvertently synchronize a corrupted data set, well, you've just created yourself a massive headache. So a common application could be, now that I'm thinking this out loud, is I build a NAS, I throw TrueNAS scale on it, I run SyncThing from my desktop to TrueNAS scale. I then use the snapshot feature in TrueNAS scale as my versioning system. And since it's snapshots, now I could send that snapshot to an external drive. I could send it to an offsite NAS. I could send it to a cloud. The last piece of backups that I want to talk about is securing your backups. So if you're sending your data openly out in the cloud, is that data that you want people to see or know about? Find a way to encrypt your backups. Many regulated businesses that I deal with mandate that backups have to be encrypted on the device and while they're in transit between devices. So you'll hear the terms encrypted at rest and encrypted at transit. I encrypt all my backups because, frankly, that's my data and I don't want other people sniffing around that. The instructions to gain access to that encrypted data are in that document that is for my wife in case something happens to me. So I hope everybody's starting to see that there's a workflow that you can create to ensure that your data is safely protected, how to access it, how to check it, how to protect it, and how to verify it when you need to.
So one of the things I heard you say but not say is be honest with yourself, right? If you make this really complicated but fully open source backup system and you never have time to do it, thinking about myself, then it doesn't do you any good not actually getting your backup. So at least start with getting it in 3 different places, making sure that you are hitting those different security bars that you want within those systems. And then from there, you can move on and branch out, double check yourself. Hey, make sure that this is what's going on and that the other people in your life or business know how to access those things.
I think also
Exactly.
sustainability is important too. Let's say you come up with a great idea, it's all open source, but you can't sustain it because it's too clunky. That's probably not a good system, even if it is open source.
You have to have an honest conversation with yourself about how open source, so to speak, everything has to be. If
Just to be
you
fair,
insist, if
those
you
conversations get really heated with myself. Just so you know.
Same here all the time.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, where I have to kind of sometimes take a step back myself and realize is this is simply a tool to accomplish a task. And when it comes to the integrity of my data, my digital history, that takes precedence over anything else. Because when you need to restore your data, oftentimes you're in a panic and you forget this long, complex way that you chose to restore your backups. So for me, when I have that, white hot lightning down my spine because I deleted something I shouldn't, I step away for a minute. I come back in and I know that I just simply have to log into my NAS with a couple of clicks and through a graphical screen, find that file and restore it. There's something to be said for simplicity when you need to recover from your backups. So I'm willing to even investigate sometimes a paid third-party solution if I have to. But again, the Synology or QNAP or whatever device you can buy on the market generally has those. And what I like about those too is because it's an agent I install on my workstation, I don't have to worry about, let's say, a ransomware file, if I got one, propagating then to the backup. The agent doesn't allow that. There's no network traversing of that malware. It's controlled by a software agent on my device.
I'm sorry. So which agent do you like? Which system uses that particular agent, or just any of the backup systems that use those agents?
I personally use the Synology Active Backup for
Okay.
Business agent on this workstation, which is my
Okay.
primary workstation.
And that's a
And
local agent that runs.
exactly. So I
Okay.
downloaded it from Synology's site. I installed it. I typed in the IP address of my NAS. I typed in the service account that I use for the backups. So quick note, I don't use the same username and password for my backup account that I use for my primary account
Like
because I
you have
don't want
password 123, then this other one's password with dollar signs for the S's, 1234, something like that.
my passwords are usually something like not OpenSUSE, not Manjaro, not Arch, use Fedora.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like that.
If any of you have other backup questions out there, please hit us up in the Discord channel. Tag me CT Linux. I will be happy to help you out with that. I'm a very big proponent of ensuring that everybody has a good grasp on their data management.
So one of the applications I've used in the past, and I've been sloppy lately because my data has grown bigger than my backup drive, is back in time. Basically, another front end to rsync is all it is. And it does like the snapshot archiving, this for changes and everything else. And that works really well. I want to kind of rethink some of this because I've been using the Synology as a backup, and then I have my server, and then I use sync thing between all my different workstations that I use. So like right now, at any given time, I have four locations that exist, but it's with sync thing though. So if it's corrupted, then they're all corrupted, right? And then I have Synology as my other backup, but I kind of have some things broken up like archive versus like active, depending on how old it is. But I don't think I have a very good. It needs more refinement. I would like to explore some other options here and test some things out. I have been looking at TrueNAS because they seem to have it might be a good alternative to some others I'm looking at. I think it's like EasyNAS or another one that I'm looking at as well, but I don't know. When I look at the presentation from like TrueNAS, it looks real good to me, and
It's a fantastic product.
Synology looks real good to me also, and so it's kind of, are we splitting hairs here? Is pretty much any one just as good as any other? I don't know, and maybe it's more like what works better for you and your particular use case. Probably is a more accurate way of doing that. So, but I do want to. I have some hardware. It's retired hardware that I can utilize to do whatever I want. I want to experiment with some of these things and just see how it goes, because I think it might be fun to like take this to the next level. Because if you look around, you can get some cheap, like next to nothing enterprise like retired hardware out there. I don't know if you want to spend the money on the electricity for that necessarily, but if you're nutty like myself and you have solar panels, it doesn't really matter at that point.
So send me a message. We'll find a time to chat, because just hearing you speak about it, I already have some ideas that I think could help simplify it, but also retain the integrity of your data.
Yep. I like the snapshotting that I get with Back in Time, but I'd like to do snapshotting with Back in Time, but using an automated solution that would do this for me, maybe like on a daily basis, like when I'm sleeping at night, stuff like that. And
so I can give you a simple one right out of the gate.
Okay.
If you were to use your sync thing to the NAS, if you're backing up that file share to your NAS, you can go into your NAS, enable snapshot replication on your Synology, and then do versioned automatic snapshots at a certain time. And you can choose keep the last 24 snapshots for hourly snapshots for a day, keep the last 7 daily snapshots for a week, the last 5 weekly snapshots for a month, the last 12 monthly snapshots for a year. And that gives you multiple layers of versions.
Okay.
And then you could also take that data that you're grabbing with sync thing, and you can use your hyper backup software in the Synology to send that to an external drive or another NAS or whatever you want. And that can also then be version controlled. So you would have versioning on site, versioning offsite. Now you're earning a bonus star for the day.
I like that. So probably what I would do is, so my server, my basement has all the files, and that's my archiving agent as well, because I know what you mean by archive. because I work it that way. And from there, I'd really want to have the Synology take snapshots of that, because that will always have the most active copy available. Take that, pull it, and make snapshots of those files. I would have, I think I'm thinking like, once a week is probably adequate for the amount of data I create, really. But I know snapshots are incremental. It's not like you get a whole big data set.
You can do however you want with it. So
I'd probably do incremental snapshots.
We can chat about how to set up your versioning based upon what storage is available to you. Just let me know when, and I'll do a one-on-one with you, maybe in the OpenSUSE bar or something.
Oh, that'd be fun. That would be fun. I'm hoping here in the next few weeks, when all this major project stuff, honestly, I don't even know if it's ever going to go away after the discussion I had with someone today at work. But I'm hoping. I'm hoping I can get some of these things under control. So,
well,
good luck with that.
Speaking of getting things under control, talk to me about these the docking situation that you've been dealing with lately, because I know you've gone through several iterations of docks in your time, and it appears as though you have found one that works well. I'd like to know more about it, because I'm having my own docking station problems at the moment.
So let's run over. So these are USB-C docking stations for various computers I've had. So I think I would actually want to run through the number of iterations of docking stations I've had. So that's one. It was a Dell. Looks like a brick. Don't remember the number of it, but it was kind of an older one. I think it was Thunderbolt 3. I have another Dell over here that's from work that I use, which for this implementation is fine. And then I've had a there's another one that I used, but it had like a display link on there, which was not. It wasn't very good. It worked good enough for the time. It is now in a drawer. That's how good it is. And that was like an Onyx something, or I don't know. Not very good. Doesn't matter. I would not track it down unless you are super desperate or you had like some crazy idea of something you wanted to accomplish. Outside of that,
no scraper for your car.
It would be a little bit. Actually, it has a nice aluminum like case for it, It probably would be pretty good. It might be a little rough on your windows. I don't know. It might be fine. And then I had a Lenovo dock station that I use, one with display link on it, one without. Those actually, that might be it right there. It's actually a really pretty dock. Like, as far as docks are concerned, I like the coloring. I know that's really maybe a dumb thing to say, but I'm going to go with it anyway. But what I really was looking for specifically was a dock station that had multiple Thunderbolt ports, so like a Thunderbolt hub, because that's hard to come by. And I was looking, and the reason is the multi-screen setup I have, not here, but in my home office, I was having some, let's call it stability issues with the way I'd been doing it. So I was using 2 ports to get the Thunderbolt off my framework. I really want to just plug in one side and be done, because sometimes when I plug in on both of them, like, I don't know if it was a Linux problem or dock station, like bugs with the dock station, because it was an older Thunderbolt 3 dock. But anyway, so it would like bring stuff up, and then it would like, go down, up, and then it would like start rearranging the logical of where the screens are. And pretty much almost every time that I plugged in, I had to rearrange the screens. And that's kind of annoying, because like it would swap things around and everything else. So just like, it was really annoying. So I got this, I thought I'd give it a try. It's Ugreen. I've seen some YouTubers pedal. I shouldn't say pedal. That's not right. I've seen some YouTubers shill. No, that's not right either. Advertise for Ugreen, and I can't remember which one it was. It's probably one of the more modern like hardware. Like, I don't watch too many like Linus Tech type videos, because those don't interest me as much. They just don't. They should, but they don't. So I was looking at what Ugreen had to offer, and so they have this RevoDock Max 208 Thunderbolt 4 dock. So it's an 8-in-1, which whatever. But what it does have is 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports, so I can plug in my Thunderbolt thing. So I've got this FlipGo monitor that has the exact same resolution as my framework laptop that uses Thunderbolt. And then I have another Thunderbolt that has 2 monitors in it that's beside it, and then I have 2 HP display link monitors as well. So since going to the Ugreen using this dock station, I do notice when I do plug it in, it doesn't instantly turn on all the monitors. It's like there's some computations going on in the background. Don't know what's going on exactly, but you hear like the plasma do those sounds of plugging in something that, and then you hear, and then all of a sudden, and it all comes back, all comes up. But it's been flawless as to how reliable this has been compared to the other dock stations. I still have an open Thunderbolt port as well. And so it works really well. I think it's maybe because it's newer, it's a Thunderbolt 4. The framework is a Thunderbolt 4. Maybe a lot of the bugs have been worked out of the whole Thunderbolt system. And so that's why I'm not getting the strange behaviors. Or also maybe because it all happened kind of at the same time. Maybe I think Plasma's constantly getting updates on Tumbleweed. And so there's a lot of the refinements have been happening there as well. Reading through the change logs, I didn't really see a whole lot on how it handles display and whatnot, but I know there's constant updates happening to Wayland. So maybe it's related to that. I don't know, but it is working great. I'm very happy with this dock station. It's working incredibly well. And it also allowed me to, I threw on like a DisplayPort dock station on top, like chain one off of it, just to see if I could like push more monitors. And I can push more monitors. So basically I have 4 DisplayLink monitors essentially, and the 4 coming off the GPU. I can push them. I can push them pretty well with this dock station. So it's being able to manage the data streams extremely well. And I even played like on the one of the side monitors that I was running off of it. So it's basically going through the Ugreen dock station, then this like old Dell something dock station with a display link on it. So playing Minecraft on a on chain down, whatever, I don't know how to describe it, but like, daisy chain down was as performant as the other display link monitors as well. I mean, actually really was bad because Minecraft doesn't really push that hard. Regardless, I was impressed that the whole thing is as stable as it is, and I can actually reliably use as many monitors without any kind of issue. So I can dock and undock, and I don't even have to think about it. It's not even painful at all to mess with. So as fiddly as it was for a while, this took care of all my fiddliness, and I'm very happy. It was like $150-ish, so not too bad.
Nice.
This actually, buying dock stations in the future, like even in the enterprise, this might be the dock station that I go toward, even in the enterprise.
I noted that down because we've been using the Lenovo docks at work, and they mostly work. What I actually find tends to be the limitation is the cable. If you get really crappy cables or really low-end cables, you will have performance issues. Do not skimp on your Thunderbolt cable you're connecting to your computer, and don't get unshielded or low-quality video cables. So the problem that I'm having is on the station next to me, which I use for work. I have 3 27-inch 2K monitors, and the one that is to the far right always ends up in the far left. And I suspect that's because the dock is picking up that monitor last. Now, the cheap way to do that would be just to flip the cables around.
Right. That's what I would do.
The right way to do it would be to get a better quality cable than what I have hooked up on that. So I've got 2 display ports and 1 HDMI. And I think it's the HDMI one that's causing me problems, because I did what every other technician does and pillages their bin of cables out of their corner of the basement and tears it apart until they say, this is why I held onto this cable for as long as it did. You plug it in, and then after all that toil, it doesn't work the way that you want to, and you just say, I'll live with it.
And then when you find another cable because that one starts flaking out on you, and eventually
you end up with cable proliferation, because then you think you need to keep all the cables for all the things, and then you end up with like 30 display port cables and 50 HDMI cables. Why did I do that?
Yeah.
So as soon as I have a problem with a cable now, like as soon as that cable starts to misbehave, I have a scrap wire bin, because I always need scrap wire for something. So I throw them in the scrap wire. It's a little flip top tote, a 12-gallon, I think. And that's where I put my cables. So if I have like scrap wire, scrap cables, whatever, that's where they go, because I'll dig in and I'll need some sort of wire at some point in time until I get a virtually unlimited supply. And then if it gets too full, I just take it for recycling. And then there we go.
Really good idea. I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gets the stuff that's no longer properly working out of your regular wire bin, but at the same time, you have resources to play with for other projects.
Like the HDMI cable that you stepped on, you bent it, and then you put it, you try to like rebend it back so you could use it, and then it doesn't ever work right again, and then it's like, what am I going to do now?
I think that's what happened with this thing. Now that I think about it, is exactly that. I might have run it over with my chair. Or stepped on it. Yeah.
Yeah, that happens.
Mm-hmm.
That happens. So speaking of things that happen, Bill, you've got more sensors, and so you're doing Zigbee. Now, Zigbee, is that the 900 megahertz or is that the 2.4 megahertz? 2.4
2.4.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Z-Wave is the 900.
Okay. So tell me about this.
Well, we have been very busy at work deploying Home Assistant, not only at our office, but for our customers, and it has been well received. My technicians are very happy to learn about it, and it's got this cool trickle-down effect of now they're learning how to use open source hypervisors to run their Home Assistant machines. So, for instance, one technician has Proxmox running on a small server, and he has Home Assistant OS running on that. My setup's a little different, but for the Black Friday special, I decided to go completely nuts ordering sensors. So some of the sensors I have ordered were water detection sensors for my basement, because this wonderful room has been flooded before. I put them by my washing machine and dryer. I put them in every bathroom underneath the P-trap in the sink. And I have one next to my refrigerator and my hot water heater. So if the hot water heater leaks, I know about it before it turns into a disaster. If there's a leak in any bathroom, I know about it ahead of time. I bought vibration sensors. Now, those are interesting because I'm going to put those on my washer and dryer. There's going to be an automation that when the vibration stops in the dryer, it just sends a push notification to my phone saying the dryer has completed its cycle.
I like that.
So if I'm not home, I can still know that it was done. My mother is very interested in this because now she can blatantly show my nephew who lives with them, hey, the laundry is done, and don't tell me it's not. Go change it over now. You have no excuses because Uncle Bill put an alert out there saying that this can be done. And then I bought the usual contact sensors for my windows and doors. I bought some smart plugs and smart switches and bulbs. I went with Zigbee as the standard only because I like it more than Z-Wave in terms of security. Now, there are some things that are still Z-Wave only. Many light switches are still Z-Wave. But I realized in all the fun stuff that I've had, I haven't done any sensors for my own home. Now I'm going to take it a step further. I have the gentleman who's been the cornerstone of our Home Assistant deployment is very much into the SB32 and SB Home stuff, aka build your own sensors. So we have some deployments that have to monitor dangerous particulate in the air, namely manufacturers that deal with plastic. Yes, those things. So SB Homes are very cool little microcomputers that you can actually ingest if you're Nate. Or you can do constructive things with them like make sensors. And I know Matt's not here, so we can talk about 3D printers without him throwing a temper tantrum.
Woo-hoo.
Or falling asleep.
Or falling asleep. Or
typically it's just falling asleep. Yeah.
Tantruming and then going to sleep. So for the work side of things, we are taking those SB32s and we're making our own, for instance, air quality sensors, 3D printing a case with our company logo on it, and then selling that as a product. And It's a lot of fun to actually get into the electronics, to be able to really customize the thresholds of what you want to alert on. And it's far cheaper than the products you can buy online.
And
so
also,
I'm looking
you have actual control of it too. You're not reliant on some other company.
Exactly. Most of the SB32 stuff runs SB Home over Wi-Fi.
Mhm.
But for many applications, that's totally fine.
Okay.
Now, I have a
So,
question
Nate,
for
you
you.
grabbed that little board earlier, and
This
you
is an
said that one's going to be used for a doorbell? Is
No,
that what
no.
you were hinting at?
I had an idea. I mean, it wouldn't take much to turn into a doorbell because you can have it.
Okay.
You can have it. You close the contact, basically, and then you can have that send a
Okay.
trigger. Using MQTT or some other method, and just have it then
That's
trigger
the easy
something.
part. It's the video part that's a little challenging.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, video doorbell, like how do you replace Ring or Google Nest or Wise or Blink or any of the other ones? What I'm looking at is actually the Ubiquity Networks one, just because I'm a big Ubiquity fan. They have a nice doorbell. They have some nice access control stuff. What we may actually want to get into is actually what I want to do at home is how do I build my own alarm panel?
Ooh.
So how can I build my own alarm panel that has its own cellular backup and can call an emergency services with an automated message in the event of fire, flood, whatever have you?
So
Right.
I think would be really cool if when you do build this, if you make it look like something that belongs like in the 1950s or 60s, with big chunky buttons and like e-stop looking buttons as well, and
The
things
suggestion I
flashing.
made, it
That would
work
be,
for that was more steampunk.
yeah, but then some reel to
Ah.
reel. Even if it's just
Yes.
faux reel to reel, just get some reels and just have it spin. And
Then I can tell
I'm
my
getting
technicians that are
flashbacks from oh my goodness, the name of the movies just slipped my mind.
Dr.
The John Wick
Strangelove.
films.
Oh,
Yes, no.
yes. Oh,
John Wick.
yeah, John Wick.
Yeah.
Yep. Where they had VIC-20s there powering monochrome 80 column screens, which was a little bit off, but whatever.
I just want to be able to tell my technicians that the alarm system is actually just on tape. And just let that soak in for a minute and see what they
I think that'd be, I mean, honestly, Bill, if you did something like this, that would be like S tier nerddom. Really, it would just so fantastic.
without violating the rules and regulations of the wonderful Tux Digital network that hosts us. I will keep it short and sweet by saying that there's a certain alert that goes off when I enter the stock room. That's rather offensive. And one for everybody else that's not offensive, because the camera in the stock room uses a little bit of AI recognition to know that it's me versus one of the other technicians. So when I open the door, it has a rather unfriendly message. And then when one of the other ones opens the door, it's perfectly fine. So their thought was, let's gaslight Bill by telling him that there's something wrong with him and not the system. Fortunately, I've been around long enough to know how the game is played and what happens whenever I'm not in the office. So I thought that was a real creative way. And the way we use it for constructive purposes is the camera detects a car out back and it just tells us a message in the Google speakers around the office. There's a car out back. So we know when shipments arrive, or if there's a person out back that's walking around, we can tell if there's a person out back or an animal. It's usually the bear that's crawled on top of the dumpster and he's trying to pilfer the contents of within.
You mean an actual bear, like a black bear?
Yes, they're very, very common where I live. And one managed to crush the top doors of the dumpster with his weight, and he successfully liberated the garbage that was inside.
Wow.
The dumpster company didn't believe us. They thought that we had damaged the dumpster until we showed them the video.
And then they had no
highly
choice.
amusing.
They had to see, yeah.
They found it highly amusing and replaced the dumpster the next day.
Which is the plastic lids, though, right?
Yes.
Nonetheless,
funny.
There are no bears here, like where I live, right here in Michigan. But if I go north, just a couple hours, maybe a little bit further north than that, there's bear crossing warning signs, and I don't want to live around bears. I already have a problem with deer back here snorting at me if I'm going out here at night. Like, I don't want to go out there at night unless I have proper defensive posture. I'm just going to leave it at that.
My problem isn't bears right now. I actually have a different problem with my setup. And for you home labbers out there, you may or may not have experienced this, but I discovered that one of my racks, the one that's mounted to the wall, was not level. And not level as in side to side or tilted. It was unlevel front to back, as if it was coming off the wall. And so I thought, I don't see any space between the back of the rack and the bolts holding it in. So what's the problem? And I quickly realized that the problem is far more serious than I thought. The concrete anchors that are holding the plywood and the studs to the wall were coming out of the concrete. They were not the right anchors or screws to begin with. What that means is I've had to completely disassemble my home lab and move it into a different freestanding rack that I have on standby. So everything right now is crammed into a different rack. I can't stress this enough, having now dealt with this firsthand, especially if you're dealing with concrete. Use the right anchors, use the right screws. Don't use drywall screws and anchors for your solution. Now, I did not install them. I'm not exactly comfortable drilling into concrete in my own house. It'll make me pass out from anxiety and stress. So I had an electrician do it after the house flooded and we were rebuilding everything down here.
Right.
But needless to say, that was a bit alarming. So for you home labbers out there, you professionals, system integrators, toolers, doers, check your hardware and not just the computer hardware, actual hardware.
I like to go with the lead anchors because they taste better.
Yeah, I like the mercury ones. They make me feel really good. And plus they're because they're liquid, they kind of fill in all the cracks and stuff. But that almost never happens because the glass of mercury is always empty. I don't know how that happens. Why can I taste purple all of a sudden? So speaking of bothersome technical or non-technical issues, Wendy, I hear that you are having some problems over there with in Printerland.
Yes, I'm definitely having some issues in Printerland, and it almost seems like it's a broken record. So the transition from the glass to metal actually went pretty good as far as my build plate goes. I did have to take off the pieces that were keeping my Z-axis screws kind of stabilized because my bed could no longer go up high enough. And so those did have to come off. So I am dealing with some screeching right now. And then for me, I still have to go ahead and glue the build plate. I know Nate was able to get away without having to do that, but in my situation, I still have to use the stick glue in order to get stuff to stick. The problem came when we had been to 2 different competitions and the team had figured out, okay, our current intake for those scoring elements just isn't working out the way we wanted it to. So Monday night, we kind of had the rundown. All the team was together because we were missing a team member at the competition in Montana. Kind of did a rundown all together. And my son, he's like, I got an idea. So as soon as we come from the meeting room downstairs, he's already starting to build stuff and put together. And I'm like, yeah, that's great, but it's late and I need sleep because I haven't been to bed before midnight in over a week. So we're headed out. So we came back the next day and he continued to go ahead and work that out. There was a couple other mentors there at the same time and they'd worked out a pretty good solution. Went ahead and prototyped most of it with an idea of where things were going to get placed. And then Wednesday, he catted a piece that he needed to make all of that work. Well, we also had robotics Wednesday night. So it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday last week. And then, of course, we left to go see family Thursday morning. But as I'd started that print on Wednesday, the silicone glove that helps control that heat, helps make sure that it's holding heat, all that good stuff, protecting the bottom of where that heats up, came off. And I knew I should replace it because I knew there was a tear in it. I knew I had other ones, but I wasn't sure where they are. It was just going to be quick, right? I was just in a hurry. It would be fine. No, that fell off and it turned into a mess. My daughter stopped the print for us while we were at Robotics. I didn't get to clean up that mess until Sunday. So Sunday, here's another case of a hurry slows you down. I had that metal brush, right? I had the hot end heated up so that filament would come off of it. I'm rubbing it down with that metal brush and those copper wires connected to the thermistor that was currently having heat or electricity pumped through it. Yeah, sparkle, sparkle, in not a very good way. I freak out. I look, no temperatures are stable. Nothing's crashed. I'm like, it's fine. Realize that part of my bed leveling issue is my Z-axis or my Z screws are off. So I power down the machine so I can tilt one up, level up that bed. I go to power it on and it says, I can't find the main board. I can't find the main board. No matter what I do, I swapped out cables. I was like, maybe it's just the SD card. No, it fried the SD card and I fried another one trying to put firmware on it. Yeah, they're both completely dead and now need to go into the recycle bin. So I did a quick and dirty order. So this is a Big Tree Tech SKR Mini E3 V3. Very, very basic. It comes with the stepper drivers already installed on it. You don't really have to do any jumper cables. I spent Monday, I ordered that on Sunday. I spent Monday working out most of the config file. The board showed up today. I did have to do a couple different things because I didn't put the exclamation part in certain places. So it was trying to run the motors in the direction that they weren't supposed to go. And so after some tweaking and changing, all of that's working. I've actually been popping in and out of here as I'm trying to get that bed level because still need to print those parts for the robot. And the team is headed to Utah this weekend. So that is my hurry up and wait story of the week, causing problems for myself. At this point, I have the latest version of those parts in Orca Slicer. They're ready to go. I just need to go ahead and make sure that that Z offset is still good. So I get a nice first layer going. And then hopefully these parts will be going with us to Robotics tomorrow.
Well, here's hoping, because man, when the it seems like when you have 3D printer problems, not you personally, but you parenthetically, everybody, it seems like it's always a layer of issues. Now, I messed up my silicon thing. This is a while ago, and I'm like, this, expletive thing, messed up expletive part, and I ripped it off and I threw it away. I'm like, why do we even use these expletive things anyway? And I just haven't replaced it.
Oh, there you go. And as long as it's holding temperature good and you're not having any problems, you're not collecting any filament on it, it's probably fine. Like I said, I already had some ordered. So I actually looked them up and I'm like, oh yeah, I ordered more in June. I have some. It's just a matter of finding that safe place and where I stored them. And it goes back to the same thing. Like, I really want a second 3D printer for situations like this, right? Yeah. I burned this one to the ground. It was unusable.
Multiple
and my biggest, multiple times. Yes, I've released the Magical Blue Smoke more than once. But in this particular occasion, it was something entirely stupid. If I'd been taking my time instead of rushing, it wouldn't have been an issue in the first place. But I was more concerned that because of what I did, what happens if it's not just the main board that I fried? What if it is that heating element on top of it? What if it is motors on top of it? Because I already know I've killed 2 carts. Now, I haven't tried to heat this yet. So I don't know for sure if I have killed that heating element or not. Fingers crossed that I have not, because like I said, the team's 3D printer is still down, and it's something that I was tweaking with last night. Yes, as we have different qualifiers in different states going on, we have robotics pretty much every single night at this point. The only reason why I'm not at robotics tonight again is because I'm here with the 2 of you and all of you out there listening. So fingers crossed for me as I get to the point where I actually start to heat that hot end, that everything's fine. But so far, knock on all the wood, it's currently working.
Well, it'll break again.
Oh, guaranteed. I mean, it is me using it.
The 2 of you have absolutely helped convince me as to why I should never buy a 3D printer. As
No.
cool as it is to listen to the trials and tribulations, you have done a phenomenal job at convincing me that this would be the worst idea for my mental health and my blood pressure.
No, it's great, because what's going to happen is it'll raise your blood pressure so high that you won't even know that the Grim Reaper came, to come collect his man. So
here's the
it'll
thing.
be fun.
There are pretty much all-in-one solutions out there as far as 3D printers go, where you don't have to mess with this. The one kid who's part of the robotics team, he has a printer that's Bamboo Labs. Absolutely loves it. Doesn't have any problems with it. I do not recommend the Creality K1 Max. We've had multiple issues with that extruder. That's part of the reason it's currently not working right now and needs to be taken back apart, because there's a piece of filament stuck in those gears right now. And so as it tries to extrude or extrude, it's skipping because there's something in there. So that one has been a problem. I do not recommend that one for that reason. But the one kid on the robotics team has had nothing but positive things to say about Bamboo Labs. I think there are some other ones out there that are kind of that all-in-one solution, but these are typically ones that you're not upgrading, you're not making changes to. And I have played with this one, right? I have done things to it that have, in my process of upgrade and learning or speeding through things, I have fried stuff. So if you're wanting one of those situations where, as Matt would put it, this is an appliance, this is the thing that it does, I'm not going to worry about upgrades, tweaking, anything like that. There are solutions out there, just not what I'm currently doing.
So would the opposite of extrusion, when you're drawing the plastic out, be intrusion at this point?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
extrude or
intrude. Michael told me whenever I'm guest hosting on your show that I have to drop in the obligatory dad joke, so that was my attempt at doing that.
I'm sorry, I missed it. That's my bad. That was great.
No sarcasm there.
I was so stuck on actual terminology that my brain was not there. Yeah.
So the 3D printer, I defined it. The 3D printer that I really want to buy, and I probably should just buy it at this point. But it is a apparently it's out of stock now. I guess I should have bought it. But it's this QIDI X Max 3. And the reason I want that is I want something with a bigger, it's not a table slinger, it's a drop table type. The reason I want this is it's big enough that I can print a lot of my projects that I'm printing. I'm having to print them like in two separate pieces and then glue them together.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of a drag. And a guy I work with, he has this printer and everything he brings in just looks so good. Like it's just, the print is just perfect. And I'm like, wow, okay. Michael said I have to be careful about the jokes that I say on this. I don't know if you heard that, but I like some of my things that I say that I think are not offensive are offensive. So I have to be careful. I would love to have one of these printers and, or one like it with with a 12.8 by 12.8 inch build plate, because then I could do all the things that I want to do. Like then all the things for now until I find something else bigger that I can't do on it. But anyway.
Right. Yeah, this one has a really nice size. It's a little bit smaller than my Ender 5 Plus. But yeah, that's the nice thing. That's currently like these pieces that I need to print, they're hard to print on either every other team member's printer because their build plates are just too small. And so then they end up needing to go on the build plate at an angle in order to print as one piece. And you have all this extra support material that needs to be printed at the same time, which then increase the cost of printing them, plus the time that it takes to print them. Absolutely.
There is another one, and this is actually cheaper, same size, same. It's like the next iteration. Cheaper. I might have to. Santa might have to bring this to me for Christmas this year. I've been good, except for what Michael says.
I guess I've missed the fact that people have found you offensive, but I guess my sense of humor is a bit.
I don't think it was.
I think Magneto just said
deal.
something, but I missed it. Oh,
I don't
dark. I think he said dark.
probably. It's
Yes, he said dark.
okay. So yes, I can have a dark sense of humor, but also I was told it's a little off and not I think the what Michael said was it's not appropriate. I think is how he put it. So it really
Okay.
sounded like
Okay.
I'll say what it was afterwards, and you probably won't even pick up on it either. Yep.
I'm curious. Yeah, you got me super curious. Is this a conversation he had with you about stuff that was said on this show? Stuff
Yes.
that was said on stuff that's okay. I'm curious because he's never said anything to me about it. So yeah.
Yeah, he said it's funny, but don't say that. Essentially.
Okay, I gotta know. Yeah. I gotta know. Welcome back from that gigantic content edit. Yes.
I'm just saying. This QIDI Max 5 or Max 3, whatever it is, Max 3. Man, I want it bad. I just cannot put the dollars down on that right now.
Yeah, I totally get that. It's the biggest reason I don't currently have one at the moment, a second one at the moment, but heck yeah. And I haven't really heard of this brand, the QIDI, until you just brought it up, but it looks like a lot of their printers are already coming with Clipper. This one, the Tech X Max 3D, 3D, looks like it's also stock with the fluid interface. So whatever they're doing, I like it. They've got some open source software on it, makes it easier to use. All total thumbs up for that. Fluid is awesome.
PLA, ABS, PETG, TPU, so I can do the rubbery things. But it's actually I want to design cases for my framework that I can like.
Ooh, I like that idea. So we have TPU. I've been printing some recently, and what I've been using is the Overture. I think the version of it that I have is I'll have to look it up and share it with you. But that one's been really good. So as part of how they are depositing the scoring elements, right now they've got these little fingers that can grab them, the kind of scoring elements that I'm talking about.
Yep.
And the team had talked about making something that was a little more form-fitting, so it slips within the sides of that rectangle, keeps it a little bit more secure. And so the main fingers themselves are still being printed out of that nylon carbon fiber. I've got the PA12. So it's nice because it doesn't absorb a lot of extra moisture, but in order to have that grip, she's catted some pieces that can then be printed out of TPU, so you get the best of both worlds, and they just slip on those existing ones. The problem was the first time we printed them, before I had messed up the printer, they weren't quite right, so they fit nicely within those grooves, but once they had them on, and based on where that gearing was set, they weren't touching that scoring element properly. So she went into Onshape and started playing with it, also using assembly. So she had the gears together, those fingers on the gears, and then placing her triangle sleeve on top of it, and was able to get that angle just right. So that is one of the things that I will be also printing before we go, because she's been able to test that as an assembly inside of Onshape.
See, that's pretty awesome.
Yes. yes.
And Orca Slicer has this printer as one of the presets. I just checked.
So I think what I'll do is when I'm ready to start diving into the 3D printing world, I will pick both of your brains about what a good model is for me, something pretty tinker-free, definitely open source friendly with Clipper and Octoprint. And then maybe I can join your ranks.
Sounds like fun. We'd love to have you as part of the crew.
Easy to exceed those ranks with me because just saying.
Now it's your turn to toss in your 2 cents on today's topics. Hit the discourse form. Drop us a line under this video or the contact form by visiting tuxdigital.com/contact. If you'd like to hang out with us on our preferred social media, see the links in the bottom of the show description. Find other great shows like Sudo Show, which you can find Bill, Destination Linux, those guys are great. Plus there's Jill, or Linux Saloon, where you can find Nate, and more at tuxdigital.com. Show off your love for your favorite podcasts and shows by visiting the Tux Digital merch store. grab yourself some awesome swag, like the gamer-centric I paused my game to be here, which I'm sure Matt is very busy playing video games, not resting up before travel. Or you can join hashtag Team Wendy for some Sinister Wendy swag. And after today's conversation, I think we might need some Sinister Bill swag as well. As always, we thank you for joining us. We'll be back next time with another awesome episode of Linux Out Loud. Until then, keep the banter friendly, the conversation somewhere near topic, and have fun doing it.